What's up, guys? Jamie here, and welcome to episode 16 of No Turning Back. We are only going to touch on certain points that happened this week, and obviously, as you can see, what the title says, those are the few of the things that we will be touching upon. But, anyways, as always, I am here with my guest host. Would you like to say anything?
What's up, everybody? Your Asmi Israelis here, and I don't know what's going on with my iPhone camera. Obviously, this is my camera for everything now, but for some reason on live, when I'm sitting up, it wants to put black bars on the side. It doesn't do that when I'm laying down. Like during the Royal Rumble reactions, it was fine, but I apologize for like a smaller screen size. I have no idea what the problem is with that. So. But anyway, yeah, like Jamie was saying, we just had a lot of things coming up, happen to us this weekend, personal issues and things. So we're doing this a bit late. So this is just going to be a bullet. I can't get that word out. Sorry.
Bullet points that we're going to be touching on. I didn't have any personal issues going on. It's just we didn't feel like doing it last week, and there wasn't anything to talk about. But this week, there's a lot more to talk about, and we're even closer to a pay-per-view and even closer to WrestleMania. But would you like to add anything else?
No, that's you just basically covered for me. I don't know why the word bullet would not come out of mouth, but
You
sorry.
should, because you can say Bullet Club, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. One of those freaky things, but okay, so what order do you want to go in?
All right, I think we should touch on Daniel Bryan. Now, I'm going to get the link so you can touch on it first, but
Okay, well, it's a very sad thing to see Daniel go. I mean, I'm still very sad about it, and it's literally 7 days later at the time of this live recording. We kept hearing all the stories about how he was getting EKGs and EEGs and everything else and saying he was said he was fine, but he literally got, as he said during his retirement speech and as he repeated in the Sports Center interview with Jonathan the Coach Cushman, he literally got one EEG test that said that he was not fine and his brain wasn't okay. So at least he's doing the right thing for himself and not putting himself in danger. But it's just so hard because he's only 34 years old. And even though he wrestled for 16 years, he only had 6 years in WWE. And it feels like he just barely began to scratch his surface. Though I said it in my video, my solo video that I made last Tuesday, there will never be, in my opinion, anybody who will ever be able to duplicate what Daniel Bryan did in terms of it was just a purely organic reaction. This was a situation where WWE didn't want this to be their top guy or one of their top performers of all time. The fans forced it. The fans saw the talent in Daniel Bryan. They saw Daniel Bryan being held back, and they made the Daniel Bryan thing happen. And in the process, prevented a lot of really stupid main events. One in particular. I mean, think about WrestleMania 30. The main event of WrestleMania 30 was supposed to be Batista versus Triple H Batista versus Randy Orton for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. If it hadn't been for Daniel Bryan, that would have been one of the weakest main events in WrestleMania because of everything that happened prior to that year, in the same year of which we were already emotionally devastated by the streak ending. So just put that alone in perspective. And then you think about things like the way Daniel Bryan basically, along with a handful of other guys, is the guy that made Ring of Honor relevant. The guy who created Evolve. All these bigger independent promotions that get a lot of guys like my boy KO and Seth Rollins exposure happened because of the work that Daniel Bryan put in on the indie scene. So, in my opinion, he's an absolute Hall of Famer. I would not be surprised if he's the headliner next year. I know that's debatable for some people him going in that soon and whether or not he is a headliner, but I think he should be, and I think it should be in Ed's situation because he deserves it. And I could really go on for 3 more hours, but Jamie hasn't got a word in yet about this at all. So I'm gonna let her talk. But yeah, Daniel Bryan, my number 3 favorite performer of all time. I will always miss him, and I'm very sad that things had to end for him this way, but also very happy that he's only 34 years old and it happened early enough in his life where he can go find something else to fulfill himself. Whether that be being a family person or doing more in wrestling that's not in the ring or finding another career.
I mean, he can still do wrestling stuff. He just can't wrestle, which sucks. But he can always be a backstage guy. Like when Undertaker's not there, he's working with a newer talent. He's, doing behind the stage stuff for the company. He's always working on wrestling. He's just not physically in the ring. I mean, for wrestlers that have been doing it practically their whole life, it's hard to stay away. And then to know that you can't wrestle anymore must hurt. Like not physically, but like mentally and emotionally. But when I first found out that he was retiring, I was coming home from school, and I looked at my phone, and well, I mean, it was like dinner time, but I came up from dinner, and then I looked on my phone, and if you're following or if you're subscribed to, actually not subscribed, if you have the WWE app, because they used to send you text messages when everybody tried to win the contest for WrestleMania tickets, and you had to like do like WWE 2010 or something. I'm making it up, but now they send you like direct like messages on your phone from the app. It'll pop up and it'll say WWE app, and then it'll say like a little message. Well, that's how I found out. All of a sudden, I looked at my phone, and like, it was like text messages from different people or Twitter, or somebody uploaded on YouTube. And then I saw the first thing that popped up on my phone was that Daniel Bryan's retiring. I kind of played it off like just didn't want to read it, didn't want to deal with it. And I just kind of like, because then Raz told me, and I was like, I know. But I just didn't want to think it was real. I just kind of like, I literally was just pretending like I didn't read anything. And then we actually got to Raw. I was still like, didn't want to feel anything. And then when he started talking, that's when I was like, oh no, this is real. This is real. And I was very, very upset. I normally don't get too emotional for things except for WWE and like The Walking Dead. But it's really sad. And it's not like he had to retire because he's been from old age, or he wanted to end on a good note rather than having to retire because of some other horrible reason. He had to retire because of injuries, and that's has been a lot of why wrestlers had to retire or had to go part-time. And it absolutely sucks because Stone Cold had to do that, Edge had to do that. In the past couple of years, we've had 3 wrestlers retire. Shawn Michaels didn't retire from injury. He retired, because he wanted to retire and he thought that was enough. But Edge had to retire, was forced to retire due to injury. Daniel Bryan now forced to retire due to injury. And I don't want that to happen to Undertaker, but Undertaker had to force to go part-time because of injuries. And it seems to be like the pattern with wrestlers. Like, I don't want that to end up Cena next, or The Undertaker next, or any other wrestler next. Anything else that you want to add? Because, hold on, before you say anything, because all these other wrestlers are rushing to come back. Like, I've read Nikki is just, like, training already. Cena's training to come back. And it's like, please don't rush to come back. Don't encourage them to come back, because then they'll end up like Daniel Bryan, Undertaker, Stone Cold, Edge. I mean, the list goes on. What were you going to say?
Well, for me, I felt much the same way you did. Like, I thought the first thing you would see is Twitter, because that's the first thing I saw. So when I saw my Twitter, that's just my number one instinct, because you're my best friend and our number one bond is obviously wrestling as well. So my first instinct is anytime I see something huge, I immediately contact you. So I just saw it and I was in disbelief and I was like, "Are you seeing Twitter?" I remember, and then you're like, "Yeah, I know." And you explained the rest. But as you were saying, when it first was happening, I too thought, "Is this a work? Are they setting up something for WrestleMania because they know how much WrestleMania needs help this year?" We've heard all these stories about him being okay for everybody but WB. But as the day went on, there became more and more signs, like my boy KO, keep giving him so many shout outs, but he broke character and thanked Daniel Bryan on Twitter. Triple H broke character, which was the one that really drove it home for me because of the big, huge rivalry they had for almost 3 years. And he broke character and said, "Always have been, always will be an A+ player." So those are the things that made me really sadly start to believe that it was happening. That plus the fact that, and I apologize, my phone is ringing in the background, but this is live. There's nothing I can do about it unless I move and go over there and shut it off, which would be very detrimental to the video. So I'm just trying to talk over it. But anyway, there those were the things that to me made it real and made it, actually a thing that was happening to us. And then the fact that it took place in Seattle was like, oh my God, this is actually going to happen. And then, as Jamie was saying, when he started speaking, that's when the waterworks hit. We, I don't think we're ashamed to admit that
No,
this
I
was,
bawled.
yeah, this
Right.
was like the one time that I can remember in a very long time where we were sitting as we do every Monday night together watching Raw, and we couldn't sit together. We couldn't look at each other. She had to get up and move, and I had
I was
to
right
turn
there.
away from her.
Then I went over there and I was crying. Now I won't be when it's Undertaker's turn, I will be so beyond gone. But anyways, what I mean when he was talking, like he was joking and stuff, and I still kind of was like, okay, maybe this will be at work. But then when he said certain things and then nothing happened, I was like, oh no, this is real. And one of the things that he said that made me really sad, which was he's like, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm not gonna be a wrestler anymore. And I just was like, I just calmed myself down and now I'm bawling again. Thanks, Daniel Bryan. But
Yeah, it's just a very, very sad thing. So I guess
and then
unless
the way he had to retire too from injury, and like you said, he's only in his 30s, so it
yeah,
sucks.
I think that was probably the most surprising thing, even to me, who's somebody that's seen virtually all 16 years of his career. I think the most surprising thing was learning how many concussions he had. He talked about within the first year of him being in the ring, he already had 2 concussions. I mean, that is what did him in. Because concussions are not something to play at. And the more
It's your
and
brain.
more Yeah, and the more and more we learn about how serious brain damage is, the more and more we realize we can't push those kind of things. So, yeah, it's just very, very hard, and I'm still very sad about it. If you want, like, if you're just a WWE fan, not that that's a bad thing, but if you're one of those people that only watches WWE, but now that Daniel Bryan's gone, you really want to appreciate everything he did and everything he meant to the business. I will make a list on my social media and probably do a video in the near future of like my favorite indie matches from him. But the one that sticks out in my mind that I'm telling everybody to watch if you haven't seen it is him versus Roderick Strong from Ring of Honor, where they had a 60-minute Iron Man match. And also the title match they had with Nigel McGuinness. So look up those 2 matches on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll be able to find them. Check those out to really appreciate who the American Dragon Bryan Danielson was as much as Daniel Bryan. But yeah, I think we can make this whole show 5 hours long.
I just
Just
wanted to
about
mention one
Daniel
more
Bryan.
thing though. It's just
Yeah.
it's just we've lost so many, not only to like illness, and we've lost so many wrestlers, not in terms of like death, or besides that, we've lost so many wrestlers to injuries. There's 12 out right now, and the last 5 years or less, we've already lost like a couple of wrestlers to injuries. And in the past couple of years, a bunch have already retired, or have gone part time. You know, Undertaker, because he can only wrestle once a year. And it's like it makes me so upset that we're losing so many wrestlers like that. Like, please don't rush to come back. Please, if you know you're injured, stay away until you're fully healed. Like, you're not disappointing us by not being there. We're just sad that you're hurt.
No, we'd rather have you around longer than around right now and lose you in 5 years, 6 years, whatever the case was. Hello?
Sorry. I don't know what happened, but continue what you were saying.
Oh, yeah, I used it froze, so I wasn't sure if we lost the show there or not. Hopefully we didn't. But I was
No, it
just
still
saying,
says live, so you're good.
yeah, I was just saying that for me, it's just one of those things where I would rather have you around longer for the future than short term right now. You might think we need you right now, but I'd rather have you in 5 or 6 years than
Exactly. I mean, look at how many wrestlers we've already lost to that. And, like, Corey Graves can never wrestle again. Daniel Bryan can never wrestle again. Like, I don't want any of the wrestlers to end up like that. And I don't want Undertaker. I'd rather have. I don't know why he keeps doing that, but I don't want wrestlers to keep getting hurt and then rushing to come back. But anyway, we'll get off this topic because it'll be like 5 hours long if we keep touching on it.
exactly. So what's next, Titus O'Neil?
Yeah, you could touch on that. What do you wanna say to that?
The for the quickest recap I can give it is after Raw went off the air, they continued Daniel Bryan's retirement celebration on the network. There was an incident at the very end where Titus O'Neil playfully pushed, and I want to stress playfully pushed because it wasn't a shove, it wasn't malicious. He playfully pushed Vince McMahon aside because he wanted Stephanie McMahon to go first, I guess. He was trying to be the polite guy and say ladies first. Vince McMahon completely overreacted, has suspended Titus O'Neil. Originally it was for 90 days, which is just utterly ridiculous. Now it's 60 days, which is just as ridiculous because it's the same amount of time that you get if you're a multi-time violator of the wellness policy.
And anyway, for drugs, it's not just a law in WWE. It's a law in the United States, Canada. I mean, yes, people have different laws in every country, but drugs are illegal, so they legally have to follow those rules. It's not like certain jobs have like home rules or your house rules. It's a nationwide rule. Like, you can't. I mean, you would go to jail. You can't break the law. And it's not like he was going backstage and snorting coke. Like, he just playfully pushed you. And I also understand that you shouldn't put your hands on your boss. And yes, maybe there should have been some sort of repercussion, but I think suspending him for that long is a bit ridiculous. And anyway, Vince McMahon, I know he's 70, but he can handle himself. He is just as big, if not bigger, than a lot of those wrestlers. It's not like I got pushed. I'm 4'8" and I went flying across the room and somebody got hurt. Like, Vince, you're being a little bit of a baby. I love you, but you're being a little bit of a baby. We were ranting about literally just before we came on here, right, Raz?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it all. It's a complete overreaction by Vince, and I feel really bad for Titus because it's one of those things that kills momentum. He was starting to get a little bit of momentum as a singles competitor. He started to feel like maybe they had plans for him as a future United States or IC champion. And now this happens. And this is why I'm not saying it's racial at all, because teams like the New Day are in such a good position. Mark Henry is in somewhat of a better position as of late. So I don't think it's necessarily a racially driven thing at all. But this is why some people say that WWE has a race problem, because you wouldn't see this happen if it was anybody else with a more
True.
established name if they were white. Or
I think
Latino.
I think that it's not so much race, because people will bring race into anything. Literally, someone could like burp and say excuse me, and then like, and you know, and then people would be like, oh my gosh, he's racist. I think it's more of just favoritism, because a lot of people in WWE are not white. I mean, there's got Spanish in there, you got a mix of races, you got black. It's not just white. And some people who are white also have, like I was saying, have a mix of other races in them as well. So, and anyway, like Kalisto is not white. Like you were saying, New Day's not white. I think it's more of favoritism, and like what you probably were going to say is that unless you're like an Undertaker or a Cena or a Brock Lesnar, or if you have already that high status, then people aren't, then you're not going to get away with it.
Exactly. And the one aspect that I didn't touch on with you before we came on the air, because as you know, one of our common practices is we like to get genuine thoughts on this show. One of the things that's come out about the suspension, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, was apparently some people are saying that Titus was not informed ahead of time that you're not allowed to touch Vince until you're in a situation where you're in a storyline with him. Now, I don't know if I necessarily believe that, because that doesn't make any sense.
And honestly, it makes Vince sound like he has a huge ego, which he does. Vince, you're not like, I understand that you're Vince, but for goodness sake, he didn't stab you. Like, he didn't shove you down and punch you in the head. I think that's a little bit dramatic.
Exactly. And I think that, but what I was trying to get at was it doesn't really make sense that he wouldn't have done that, because that's like common sense to not touch your boss. But if there's any part of that is true, it's almost like, why would you want to work for WWE? Yes, if you're in this business, there's no better place to be in terms of your career. But when you hear about all this stuff, like about how disorganized they are, if they don't have a clear idea of what is okay and what is not in a working environment, then why would you want to work there? Because it sounds like a very toxic, and as you were saying, egomaniac driven situation.
And anyways, I think it's just mainly favoritism, because not to say that they're not wonderful, but there's a lot of wrestlers that do stuff and they get no repercussion. And then poor Titus, who does something so little, gets suspended for like 60 days. I'm saying, I think even if he was white, he still would have gotten the suspension, because he's not like a top guy like the Undertaker or a John Cena, like we were saying. He could have literally been any color, any race. He could have been female or whatever, but because he's not one of those guys, and because he doesn't have like, because of who he knows or doesn't know, that's why it happened. You know? And I think also, if it also depends who you're friends with too, because like, or you're dating, because I'm pretty sure if you're dating, I'm not like calling any of the wrestlers out, but if you're like dating, you know, one of the wrestlers, and you get more favoritism because of the person on top, you know.
Exactly.
So I think it's favoritism, not race.
I think favoritism has a lot to do with it, and it's a shame because WWE doesn't have any issue utilizing Titus when it comes to what kind of a good guy he is, and all of his charity work, and him winning a Father of the Year award recently from a charity organization. They don't have a problem touting that and putting that all over their screens to make themselves look good, but yet they're going to suspend him for something so small. It's a real shame. it's the kind of thing that makes me think, what am I doing being a fan of this company? But in a week, I'll be over it. But I just feel really bad for Titus.
Right. And one more thing before we go off on another topic. Like I was saying, it depends on who you know, who you're dating, and who you are. Because even regardless of the color, whatever your status is in WWE, also will help you sink or float. Because if you're Undertaker, you can do whatever you want. Even if you're black, white, whatever, even if you're black, if you have a top status, you're good. It doesn't matter the color. Even if you have a low status, but you're dating somebody who has a high status, you're also good. So it's pretty much who you know and who you are in the company. So, like, for instance, you and I were talking about, and I brought it up, but then we went into more detail. You know, guys, I love The Undertaker, and I think they're a bit dramatic when it comes to stuff, comes to things. But you know how for WWE, blood's a violation. And there's a couple of top guys who did get the violation for it, or like a lower, like they weren't yet main events, but they were still top guys, if that makes any sense. They did blood, like they had blood, but they got in trouble. But Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, which I think Lesnar bled more on by an accident than on purpose, but both of them used blood in the match, and they got no repercussion whatsoever. Not that I think that they should, because blood's okay once in a while, and you know injuries happen. So, but I read Vince was mad, but then I don't think he was necessarily mad at them. But I just wanted to point out like the hypocrisy and like the favoritism, because if that was any other wrestler, he would have had a meltdown, and like there would have been this whole spiel on anything. But because of who they are, it's okay. But if another guy does it, it's not okay. Or if Undertaker shoved, not that he would, because Undertaker is just that kind of guy unless it was part of the act. If Undertaker or Brock Lesnar playfully shoved, he wouldn't have said a word. And he didn't for when it was blood. But if it was one other wrestler, he wouldn't have said a word. I'm pretty sure other wrestlers have playfully shoved him. Why is it not okay now? You know?
I 100% agree. It is complete hypocrisy, and you nailed everything on the head. So I don't think there's anything more we can say about it.
Right. So what else do you want to move on to? You want to say the best for last, or
AJ versus Jericho too?
Okay, we'll touch on that. Go ahead.
On Thursday, great match between those two. Jericho gets a win, which this is the first time he's got a win since he came back. I just want to say this, not because I'm a Jerichoholic, but because I'm a realist. And you all know I'm a realist. Don't sit there and panic and think, oh my God, AJ Styles is going to be a mid-carder for life. Oh, he's going to turn into a jobber. One loss does not make or break your career. I fully think that we're going to get a third match, whether you like the idea of 3 matches or not. I know my partner is not a big fan of them, but I totally think that's where they're going at Fastlane, is a pay-per-view match to end this thing off between these two. I think they set it up to where Chris Jericho is going to be a full-time heel now because of it, because of where they want him to go next, which we can speculate on in a minute or two. But yeah, don't panic because AJ Styles lost. It was a great match. If you didn't see it, see it. I think it was better than the first one, and I think a third one will happen. So
I'm not necessarily a fan of rematches, but I think, you know, like you got to have the 3. 3 is the lucky number, though. You know, like I feel like 2 is just odd, even though it's an even number, if that makes any sense. But 3 just kind of like ends it. Like the first, whoever wins gets the first hand, and then the second guy wins, and then the third ends it all. Exactly. You know, you wouldn't have 50 more matches after that.
Exactly. And
I feel like 3 is always the magic number for everything in WWE. Whether that's 3 people, 3 matches, you know. But
exactly. I think that's what's happening here.
I also think Jericho needed to win at least 1 match, because 2 in a row, like I would have been like, you know, AJ wins, then Chris Jericho wins, and then the third match ends it all. And whatever feud they move on to at WrestleMania. But for Jericho's already so well established, and he's already been in WWE for so long, it kind of doesn't matter if he wins or loses. But AJ Styles, he's not in WWE, but he's already established in the wrestling world. It's not going to kill him if he loses once. And anyway, and I think that loss was needed so Jericho could win.
Exactly. So I think people panicking because he lost or just that. Does it say? So I think we're both in agreement that we're going to see a third match at Fastlane, right? We'd be surprised if we didn't.
Right,
So,
because Jericho attacked AJ Styles. And anyways,
right. Does it
and he's
say?
AJ Styles though. They're not gonna they killed themselves to get him in this company. I mean, it's been forever that they've probably been trying to get it, and no one ever thought that he would come to this company. No one thought Sting would get to this company, and they're getting all these guys. Do you really think they're going to not treat AJ Styles like that? I mean, I understand they're WWE and WWE ruins things, but he's AJ Styles. But go ahead, touch on what you were gonna
Exactly.
say.
Exactly. Well, I just wanted to wrap this up because I know we have one more thing to get into, and we've already probably made this a little bit longer than we
That's okay.
intended it to be. But I just wanted to get your opinion. Does the fact that
Sorry, go ahead.
AJ and Jericho too took place on SmackDown, does it continue to prove that they really are trying to make SmackDown relevant? I mean, is this the kind of thing that's going to make you remember to watch SmackDown every week and want to watch SmackDown now?
Half and half half because it makes me want to think they are, but the other half is making me think not really because it is before WrestleMania time, and you know they always step up regardless of for WrestleMania time, and they shouldn't only make this time of the year the best. They should try to do that all the time and then step up even more around this time. But I think they are trying a little bit because I think they're trying to do like more storyline progression, and I think that they're putting people on SmackDown that we want to see. They've had Brock Lesnar on there. They've had obviously AJ Styles versus what's it called? Chris Jericho. I can't talk, but the other part of me is like it's almost WrestleMania time. So, but I think if they weren't, they wouldn't have put Jericho versus AJ Styles on SmackDown. They probably would have saved it for another Raw or another pay-per-view or something.
Exactly.
But part of me wants to believe that, but the other part of me is like I'm not really sure.
And
It's
I also
WrestleMania
think the
time.
other element that I think gets lost, like I said, is them hiring the new lead voice for SmackDown. They have a completely different lead voice on SmackDown than they do Raw. They're trying to make SmackDown feel important. They have Jerry Lawler going back to his roots and playing a heel commentator on SmackDown, which he hasn't done in a long time. So I think there really is groundwork being laid here. But I go back to what we said when the move was first made. SmackDown's biggest issue will always be SmackDown's biggest issue. No matter what they do, unless it's live, you're going to get people not watching it because you can just read spoilers.
Exactly. Or they kind of gotten themselves into a predicament because they are trying so hard is that anything big that they do will be spoiled. So then there's almost no point in doing anything big or moving on because you will be spoiled. But what else was I gonna mention? Also they've been putting on like actually legit matches that people want to see. Normally they have some thrown on match like we'll have like Titus O'Neil versus like Mark Henry or something. It's like who the heck wants to see that? People want to see Jericho and AJ Styles. They actually put on like matches you would normally see on Raw. They put on SmackDown.
Exactly.
Or at a pay-per-view.
So I think my thing is I would recommend people giving SmackDown a shot right now because I think that they are trying that.
I'm really sorry it keeps doing that. I don't know why it keeps doing that. So I guess we'll have to wrap up shortly. But go ahead, finish your thoughts.
I was just gonna say I don't know. Jamie's having all kinds of tech issues, and I hope it's not me. I think it might be you because you were having a little bit of a Skype problem earlier. I don't know, but anyway,
it's snowing outside. I don't know if that has to do with anything.
I don't know if that has to do with anything either. But yeah, just watch SmackDown if you haven't been because I think you'll be surprised by what you see. But yes, you wanted to talk quickly about Undertaker.
Oh, and one thing before we mention that, though, I'm hoping that they're really trying and not just because it's WrestleMania time. And the problem is it's not live and because it's WrestleMania time. But anyway, let's touch on Undertaker. So now that we're finding out that the Undertaker is not facing Braun Strowman because of the severe backlash that they've been getting, what now? Where does Undertaker go now? Who does he face? Who's left? We're still at the predicament like where we were at the beginning of this year, or even like the beginning of or the end of last year. Where do we go now that the Undertaker? Where do we go? We're back to square one.
We are back to square one. They keep talking about something unexpected, and I say this legitimately. I think this guy right here, KO, is the best option right now. He had the hottest year of any quote unquote rookie, new guy, whatever you want to call it, in WWE history by beating John Cena, by winning the Intercontinental title. What better way to keep him relevant but not necessarily have him win than putting him in there with a guy like Undertaker? He can carry.
You always benefit off of Undertaker, even if you lose. The guys have always benefited.
Exactly, and KO, because of his mic skills, because of his character, because of kind of persona that he is, he can carry the feud in the weeks that Undertaker can't be there. Because Undertaker's not going to be there for the full month and a half going into WrestleMania. So, in my opinion, Kevin Owens is the best choice. Another choice might be AJ Styles, because it's a guy who is established, he does have a history, but is someone completely unexpected because he just got in the company, and somebody that would put on a great match. And then my third choice is still Jericho, because he's the guy that is there, he's established, and that's one of the few things he's never got a chance to do, is face Undertaker at WrestleMania. So those are my three leading candidates right now. What about you?
Well, before you got on that, I was going to say that thank goodness that they are not going through with this. But then I'm just very happy that Braun Strowman and Undertaker is not happening. Thank goodness. I've also heard that he refused, but I think it's probably mostly us having tantrums over it. But anyways, it's like as great as it is, now what? I mean, they better start. They should have already had a backup plan, which was our rant a couple no turning backs ago. But they better start hurrying, because Fastlane's not that far away, and then after that, it's the official road to WrestleMania. But the people I would have liked to see are all gone, pretty much. But I was reading But before I mention that, I would like to say that I was happy when I read somebody unexpected, but I hope somebody unexpected doesn't mean like you know how they do it. They show somebody unexpected, and then it's unexpected, but it's kind of not really like a good match, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
I was happy when I read that. I'm like, who's left then if it's unexpected? I'm like, I'm happy to hear that they nixed Braun Strowman idea, and then they're coming up with someone unexpected, and that's the interesting part of trying to figure out who that is, because there's literally nobody left, unless the people that are injured magically come back between now and then, which a lot of wrestlers are trying to push to come back, which is a bad thing, but I think people that I want to see are Jericho. I don't know how you and I will get along during that one.
Oh yeah,
jokes aside.
Jokes aside, yeah.
Who else did I want to see? I would have liked to see Daniel Bryan, but that's not happening. But that would be very unexpected, wouldn't it? As one last hurrah, and he goes to face Undertaker. It's true that he retired, but as one last hurrah, he goes to face Undertaker, which is not going to happen. But it's a very nice dream to have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I guess you kind of we always take the words right out of each other's mouths, but I guess Kevin Owens, because he has so much going for him right now, and what better way to add to his career than to face Undertaker? And that also would be unexpected, because they apparently shot down that idea too. So then who else is left if that's not going to happen? Jericho?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, AJ Styles, Jericho, Kevin Owens. I'm trying to think who else is left on the roster. I mean,
I was going to say, if you really want to put out another name out there, I don't think Dean Ambrose has a very strong chance.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Dean.
Yeah.
What if or like what if they throw Roman Reigns in there? Like the feud between Triple H and Roman ends, like Roman wins it, and then what if they throw Undertaker in the title picture as we were writing before? That would be unexpected. Like throwing Roman Reigns or Dean Ambrose, that would be totally unexpected either.
Yeah, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose would have been my other two choices, particularly Dean Ambrose, because just like Kevin Owens, he's the kind of guy that could really carry a feud well with Undertaker that nobody would necessarily.
And it would make sense too because they haven't really ended their feud technically, even though they were heels then. And you could turn like Dean heel or Dean against Roman or something, and then like Undertaker would be like the face in the situation. You know what I mean? Like turn Dean heel because obviously it doesn't matter if it's face versus face. People are gonna cheer for Undertaker. So I got to figure that you would turn like Dean heel, which I would like to see one of them turn heel.
Right.
And then if Jericho faces, you would have to turn him heel, which Jericho's a much better heel, I think. I love him as heel. But go ahead.
I completely agree. There's not much else I can add. It's just one of those things that's very strange because next week on No Turning Back 2.0 is going to be the Fastlane predictions edition. And then we're going to turn right around, as you said, next Monday night, a week from tonight, it's going to be the official, if you want to call it that, road to WrestleMania. It's just very strange to this late in the game still be talking about so many things that aren't settled for WrestleMania, particularly Undertaker.
Exactly. And normally they already have a plan. They're probably hitting the panic button at this point. I mean, supposedly they already have somebody in mind. But it's like, it's a bit, I don't think they've ever really had this problem where so many guys are injured before their big event, like WrestleMania, and then not have a plan for Undertaker. Because at least, you know, if WrestleMania has nothing going for it, at least there's the Undertaker. But like, they don't even have an opponent for him at this point, as far as we know.
Yep.
I'm just dying to know already. Like, I want to see him already.
Exactly, me too. Well, hopefully by the time we're on here next weekend, which we should be back on track for either Saturday or Sunday. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yep. We just did it today because we got sidetracked with things.
Yeah, sidetracked and things happened in life. But I'm thinking that, especially because it's a predictions edition, so hopefully by the time you see us again for this podcast, we'll have, you know, or maybe not next edition, rather, I'm sorry, but in 2 weeks. Hopefully in 2 weeks we'll get some kind of an idea of what's happening with Taker.
I know, I check every day and there's nothing. It's the same freaking thing, like who people are speculating on. I'm like, who's the unexpected person? Who is he facing? When is he coming back? But go ahead.
Because I think any later than the Raw right after Fastlane would be too late. You can't build Undertaker's feud at the last minute. You need every possible minute in that month and a half that you have to build that feud.
Yeah, I was going to say you at least need a full month. You just can't have him come back the week before and then be like, oh, he's facing so-and-so.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. That's kind of it for me this week. Anything else you want to add?
No, nothing really happened this week other than those major things. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some good things about Raw, but I mean, mainly people were just wanting to pay attention to Daniel Bryan that night.
That's what they should have. So, thank you, Daniel Bryan.
Thank you, and read the description, obviously. Comment down below. I was almost going to say, because we want to know the question of the day, because you know how the Fratelli family do that. Yeah, no.
Well, we forgot to address, because we had issues, do you want to just carry the last question of the day over to the next week?
Yeah, because I don't want to be in the middle of talking and then it ends again. So, anyways.
Right, so, yeah, the last question of the day, really quickly, was, should there be a women's battle royal? A women's Royal Rumble. Sorry. So, let us know what you think about that, and we'll address that answer next edition.
All right. Bye.
Bye.